Welcome, everybody. Come on in. Everybody make yourself at home. It's February, meeting 16 of the California Climate and Energy Collaborative's monthly LERN calls. So this is the Local Energy Resources Network. We're so happy to have you back this month. Happy Valentine's Day. We hope you're having a nice day. Our act of love for you today, as always, is going to be to help you get access to some resources. So let's go ahead and dive right in as we get started here. If you could introduce yourself in the chat, we would really appreciate it. And if you want to turn your webcam on, we always like that. We like to get to know each other a little bit, even virtually. All right, so I'll start and go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm Angie Hacker. Y'all know me by now. I'm the statewide best practices coordinator. I'm joined by a couple of other members of the SEEK team today. So John and Kelsey, they'll introduce themselves over chat. You can always reach out to them if you're having any technical issues. So as always, this is a meeting that we come together for once a month. It's a space to for local governments and those that work with them to dive in on some programs and opportunities and to learn about which of those can really help you advance your energy and climate goals. So we know you're super busy out there doing the work. We want to make it easier for you to get a heads up on stuff that can help you pay for all of this work and afford to do it, and maybe some technical assistance and other kinds of assistance. So as usual, we're going to run through our opportunity roundtable. If you are aware of opportunities that we're not yet aware of, this is a great time to start dropping them in the chat as well. If you want to announce maybe a training or some technical assistance, or I have something new, you can always drop it in the chat. We're really fortunate today. We're going to be, we have three guests joining us today, 2 from the Strategic Growth Council and 1 from the County of San Diego. And both of them, or all 3 of them, are going to be talking to us about the Strategic Growth Council's Transformative Climate Communities program and how you can take advantage of it. After that, we have a little time for a BPC workshop. We've got a couple of bells and whistles for you at the end here. So let's go ahead and dive into our opportunity roundtable. So like I said, we do this every month, and there's a lot going on. Actually, back one slide, guys.
I'm sorry.
All right. Yeah, I think I'm still seeing the opportunity spotlight, so we're going to need the roundtable one up. And we'll get there, right?
Okay.
John, are you able to go back a slide?
Elsa, are you able to move the slides?
All right, well, I'm going to start talking, but I am hoping that y'all can throw some stuff in the chat if you're aware of anything. Let's go ahead and walk through some of these resources. Some of these are not new. Look how many yellow ones there are, though. These are the ones we're actually going to spend a little time talking about today. As we talk about these resources and opportunities, I have this little red button on here, and I'm hoping John can put the link in the chat. This is something new we're developing, and we're kind of testing it out. We're calling it a need and have board. What the heck is that? Let us show you. So it's actually going to be a kind of a shared document, and it's something that you can add. It's an informal way to flag interest in partnerships between jurisdictions or partner organizations and service providers. So this is an opportunity for you to, and maybe somebody can actually show that on the screen, what that looks like. You can drop a little post-it on there. You can say, I'm from city of blah, blah, blah. I need a grant writer. County of XXX is looking for partners for this application, or we have an RFI out and we're looking for XYZ. Or maybe you have something that folks on this call would be able to take advantage of, or some folks in our network can take advantage of. So we might have an RFI, or maybe you have a template to share, or hey, we're a good site for a certain pilot project, or I have expertise in XYZ, contact me for help. It's informal. We would like to see how it goes. So there it is. It's simple enough, and just don't forget to put your contact information so that folks that want to contact you, if they can help, they can contact you. So we'd like to see, just a little bit of informal matchmaking here, if that's helpful. I bring it up now because there's probably folks with lots of expertise out there who can actually help even with these resources and programs that we're about to talk about. So let's talk about a little bit about these programs. So if we can go back to the Opportunity Roundtable slide. We've talked about some of these already. So Caltrans, you guys already know, we had a speaker here to talk about it. Last time, the Sustainable Transportation Planning Grants is, that's going to be due on March 9th. We've talked about the OPR Adaptation Planning Grant. That one's due on March 31st. Here's something new we haven't, well, we've talked about the California Vehicle Infrastructure. Oh, there's a type of project. But they just went live with a new round of funding. So there's $30 million in rebates for DACs that are for DACs or low-income communities, specifically for the eastern and central portions of California. Those incentive applications are due March 10th. We also want to make sure that you're aware that the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program from the Strategic Growth Council has also gone live recently. That is an application is going to be due for that on April 4th. It's a big one. There's $750 million available in this program. So they're actually providing grants or loans between $10 and $50 million for projects that will achieve GHG emission reductions and benefit DACs through increasing accessibility of affordable housing, employment centers, key destinations via low carbon transportation, resulting in fewer vehicle miles traveled. So, take a look at that one. If you're doing things like, smart planning, if you're looking at vehicle miles traveled, if you're trying to work on affordable housing, take a look at that one. It's a big one. Like I said, due April 4th. Now, EPA is coming out swinging at the top of the year here. There are 4 programs that I'm going to talk to you about in the next slide on our Opportunity Spotlight that are great for this network. I really want to make sure you all are aware of it and maybe starting to think about at least the 2 that are available now for application. So we'll get to that next. Just a note, a reminder here, we had folks talking to us last time about the EECBG program. We keep talking about it because it doesn't come around that often. So the formula applications were released, I believe, last month. That's for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. This is coming from the infrastructure law. And I wanted to make sure you're aware, if you're a recipient, one of those jurisdictions that is a recipient of the formula grant, you're asked to fill out a pre-award information sheet by April 28th of this year. Otherwise, you have a pretty long application window. I think they're giving you a year to apply for it, but they do want to get an information sheet in April. Okay, so then some things on the horizon. You may have seen that the Office of Planning and Research has also been talking about its new regional resilience planning and implementation grants. This is round 1 is going to be launched here in the winter. We expect to see it fairly soon. It'll be a $25 million notice of funding availability when it does come out. And I want to let you know that they have released draft guidelines for this program, and they are doing 2 things. So they're asking for comments. Comments are due March 3rd. If you're interested in providing input on this program before it gets finalized. And there's also a workshop happening on February 16th and the 22nd. If you're interested in learning more about that program, I'm bringing it up here. We're not really the adaptation program. CivicWell does that in other ways, but there's a lot of overlap here, even for folks, for folks here on the call, folks that are doing energy resilience and other kind of mitigation work. I just wanted to bring up that it's investing $125 million into regions advancing resilience and responding to their region's greatest climate risks. And so it allows for capacity building, planning, and project implementation. So there's a couple things in here I thought would be interesting for folks, energy experts like you all. One of the eligible plan types that they mention in the guidelines is something called power disruption emergency management plans. I know a lot of you are trying to figure out how to manage power disruptions. So that's something you could actually get paid for to develop those plans through this program. Another one, an eligible implementation project they mention is sort of the group of energy system resilience projects, such as energy storage, microgrid, and other distributed energy resources. So some stuff here for you all working in energy. All right, let's see here. One last thing I want to share on this slide is a reminder that the DOE has its home, so the IRA program from the the IRA funding has, through the DOE, is paying for a new program called the Home Energy Rebate Program. So we've been talking about this a bit, and we've actually been talking directly with the California Energy Commission about this program because they're going to get an allocation of about $582 million to implement these rebates in California. And so at the end of this meeting, we're going to have a little opportunity for you to provide some insights and recommendations. Like, what do you want the CEC to know about operating home energy programs? If you have some experience to share, we'd love to grab that. And then if you are somebody who's really into this, you can actually provide comments directly to the DOE. Those are going to be due on March 3rd. All right, next slide, please. And you of course saw transformative climate communities on this slide. We're going to talk about that next with our guests. All right, so opportunity spotlight. So like I said, the IRA funding we're really seeing it come to life now in these programs. So EPA has got several climate and environmental justice programs that I want to make sure you're aware of. There's 4 of them. 2 of them are live, meaning there's applications available now. But let's go left to right here. So climate pollution reduction grants, there's $5 billion available that will be available once this program goes live. It's going to be eligible to states, territories, tribes, air pollution control agencies, and local governments. And it's for developing and implementing plans for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and other harmful air pollution. Everything okay? Okay. So we're still waiting for program guidelines. We don't know enough about this program yet, but just know that we're expecting to see the non-competitive portion of the planning grants in March. And there's an introductory workshop tomorrow if you want to learn more. And we have the links here for you. Let's go to the one below next, the Environmental and Climate Justice Block Grant Program. That's a $3 billion investment, and it's actually eligible for CBOs, and I know we have some of our CBO friends here on the line. So you could be a CBO, a partnership of CBOs, or you can be a CBOs with a tribe, local government, or institute of higher education. And it's a program specifically for financial and technical assistance to carry out environmental and climate justice activities to benefit disadvantaged communities. And max awards here will be $500,000, and there is an opportunity right now to submit comment on this program, the draft guidelines, by March 13th. So not that you all have time to be submitting all these comments, but if this is something that you're really interested in, sometimes it really pays off to provide some input up front to make sure it's built in a way that you can use. The Environmental Justice Government to Government program up here on the upper right, that's a $70 million program. This one is specifically eligible for partnerships between state, local, tribal governments, and CBOs. And so it's helping you build collaborative partnerships with other stakeholders, such as local businesses, local government, medical service providers, academia, to develop solutions to environmental or public health issues at the community level. That one's available now with a max award of $1 million, and it's due April 10th. The other one that's available now on the lower right is the Environmental Justice Collaborative Problem Solving Program. That's $30 million. It's specifically for CBOs. And it's attempting to help address measurable environmental public health impacts in communities disproportionately burdened by environmental harms. There is a max award of $500,000, and this one is also due April 10th. All right, that was a lot. Man, there's some good stuff coming out here, guys. So don't forget, if you're like feeling overwhelmed, you're like, I need a grant writer, I need somebody who's applied for these before and has a template. I don't know. Whatever needs you have in the need have list. Let's see what comes of it. All right, so thanks for that. Let's go ahead and get to the real meat of our time together today, our featured guests. So like I said, we've got some speakers here today. They're going to talk to us about the Transformative Climate Communities program, how to get ready for it, how to get ready for round 5. The solicitation is supposed to be coming up soon. So we've got 2 guests here from the Strategic Growth Council that are going to talk to us first, before we introduce our next speaker from the County of San Diego. And after that, after all the speakers speak, we have some time for Q&A. So make sure that as you're listening, just go ahead and put your questions in the chat, or you can always be raising your hand when we go to Q&A. So let me go ahead and introduce Jerry Rivero. As senior program, he's the senior project analyst for the Transformative Climate Communities program. He has 10 years of experience advocating to address inequities faced by frontline communities. So before Strategic Growth Council, he worked alongside environmental justice communities within Southern California. He's also worked for the County of San Diego as a planner promoting environmental sustainability. And we've also got Jess Eisen. She's also here with us with the Transformative Climate Communities program. She's a program associate. And prior to that, she served as business development coordinator for the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. And she also was at the UC Davis conducting community-based participatory research. So with that, I want to say thank you both so much for being here and for bringing us some information on the much awaited next round of TCC. So take it away.
Great. Thank you, Angie. Greetings, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Yeah, so again, we're excited here, Jess and I, to speak quickly, give a very quick background on the TCC program. We'll also provide important dates related to our upcoming NOFA and application release for round 5 of TCC. So yeah, for our agenda, we'll give a brief background of TCC, give an overview, and again, discuss round 5 funding. We will talk to those important dates, and then yeah, we'll have opportunity for questions. And yeah, feel free to drop the questions in the chat as they come up. We'll address them as soon as Jess and I can get to them. All right, next slide, please. Before we begin the presentation, I would just like to give some background on the California Strategic Growth Council. So SGC is a cabinet level committee tasked with coordinating state agency activities aimed at supporting the planning and development of sustainable communities. The mission of the council is to coordinate and work collaboratively with public agencies, communities, and stakeholders to achieve sustainability, equity, economic prosperity, and quality of life for all Californians. Furthermore, the Strategic Growth Council is committed to achieving racial equity in which all people of California can live in healthy, thriving, and resilient communities, regardless of race. So with that, we'll go to the next slide, talk about TCC. TCC is a program that falls underneath the Strategic Growth Council, and TCC is a community-led transformative program, which enables community-driven proposals and is also structured to provide existing residents and stakeholders with the tools and resources to drive change. TCC makes significant investments to support the deployment of multiple integrated climate strategies and projects carried out through the strong partnerships at the local level, as well with state agencies. Next slide, please. So before we go do deep dives, we want to start clarifying some of the funds that are available through TCC, particularly because for this round, we have a new funding opportunity, which is a project development grant. They're tucked in between the planning and implementation grant here on this table. We will go through these further on in the presentation, but yeah, just wanted to prime the audience just so we can start differentiating between the different types of resources. And really, nothing has changed from planning grants and implementation grants. Planning grants, really the general idea is to prepare the planning of projects and aligning of communities for future funding opportunities. Could be TCC or just open to other climate investments aside from TCC. And then the project development grants, which will fund pre-development activities. And then, as we know, the implementation grants, the larger holistic grants from TCC. Next slide we have is the current map of the awarded implementation grants across the state. To date, TCC has awarded 11 implementation grants with grants ranging between $10 and $66.5 million and projects ranging between 10 to 20 TCC projects. The next slide shows the planning grants that we've awarded. And these, you can see, is a little more robust, including rural and urban areas. And as of round 4, we have tribal communities awarded. And then for here, and then also Murtaza from the County of San Diego, who's on this call, was awarded a round 4 implementation grant, and they can, planning grant. So we're excited to have them on the call as well, so they can give their experience on this. And then historically here, awards have ranged from $100,000 to $300,000 per award. The next slide here shows the project framework and what eligible project types fall under the TCC program. So generally, applicants must select projects that build resilience, improve livelihoods through climate resilience, all under these menu of project types here that you see on the left. To the right is an image that illustrates an awarded project area and what that may look like. This is from the community of Ontario, California. So unique from other programs, TCC also funds projects that we call transformative plans to ensure that the physical infrastructure investments also provide direct and meaningful benefits to local residents and stakeholders. And we'll look at that on the next slide. So the program has 6 transformative elements that must be included in each proposal to further the transformative potential of the investment. And again, ensuring that direct and meaningful benefit to existing residents and stakeholders by ensuring community decision-making, as you can see here in the community engagement column. It also provides economic benefits through workforce development, and then avoided displacement of existing residents and businesses. And all again to build resilience to future climate impacts. So with that quick and brief background on TCC, I'll pass it on to Jess, who will discuss more around round 5. And Jess, on to you.
Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, so Jerry gave us a good bird's eye view of the TCC program. And I'm going to be talking more about the finer details. So this is probably a slide that you all are very interested in. So for the round 5 funding, we have an allocation of 100 million for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. I'm sorry, 2022 to 2023. And we plan to fund multiple projects for each grant. As you can see, the implementation grant is allotted the most money because those are the largest awards. And then there's a project development grant and the planning grant. And then next slide, please. So who's eligible to apply? So a large range of entities are available to apply, but they must include a minimum of 2 co-applicants. And when I was reading y'all's intros, I think a lot of y'all, if not all of y'all, qualify to apply. We really emphasize that this is a community-led process, and we believe in community expertise and having them at the forefront of this process throughout. So that's why our the applicants that are eligible are, very community-based. And then in round 4, we also added California Native American tribes as eligible applicants. Next slide, please. So the first grant that we have is the implementation grant. So implementation grants, they're meant to fund neighborhood level proposals that include multiple coordinated strategies and projects. So they really have that holistic perspective and are meant to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other community benefits. They are the largest grant amounts and the longest grant terms. And they also have the most requirements. So for example, they must address every transformative element. As Jerry mentioned earlier, there's 6 total. And so because they have the most requirements, applicants considering applying for this implementation grant should begin planning early and should expect to invest a significant amount of time in the application process. And also just to mention again that we expect for you all to have partners, and so you wouldn't be doing this alone. And yeah, that the implementation grant is the most robust out of the 3 grant types. Next slide, please. So this slide, it's Transform Fresno, which is a round 1 TCC grantee. They were awarded $66 million. And as you can see, as I was talking about earlier, it's very holistic. There's multiple strategies and projects. And again, it's community-led and community engaged. And so it was the people who lived in Fresno that chose these strategies and also includes all the different partners that they're working with. So it really shows, again, the holistic perspective and how large these projects are. Next slide, please. So the project development grant is the second largest grant. It's meant to support pre-development and basic infrastructure activities. So the goal is to really bridge the gap between the implementation and the planning grant. And we developed this pilot grant in round 5 because we heard from folks that it was really hard to just move from a planning grant to an implementation grant. Especially for disadvantaged unincorporated communities where they tend to have less capacity or shovel-ready projects. And this is less robust than the implementation grant with a shorter grant term. So some example activities that you can do is community engagement, feasibility studies, environmental assessments, site acquisition, and permitting. So again, moving these projects, we recognize that they are shovel worthy, but we just need to make sure that they are also shovel ready. Next slide, please. The last grant we have is a planning grant. So planning grants are intended to provide meaningful standalone planning activities while also preparing organizations to pursue further funding opportunities, whether that's through TCC or other programs. And the planning process must address one or more of the TCC transformative elements. So compared to the other two, this is has less requirements. In addition, the grants are smaller at 300,000, and they also have a shorter grant term at 2 years. Some example activities could be capacity building, climate adaptation plans, preparing project sites through site identification and project identification, and then also community health needs assessments, which we've seen in past grantees. Next slide, please. So this slide we included earlier, and I just wanted to revisit it. Again, it just shows that ideally we would love to see applicants move from a planning grant to an implementation grant with TCC, but again, with the planning grant or any of these grant types, we really try to prepare you for any future funding opportunity. And I won't go into the details, but as you can see from the special requirements column, the TCC implementation grant has the most requirements while the others have less. And then I am going to pass it back to Jerry and he'll go over the timeline and some last remarks.
Great, thank you, Jess. So yeah, here on this slide, we have a table with some important upcoming dates. We're looking towards the end of this month. I believe it's on the 28th of this month. For the adoption of the final guidelines by our council. Following that, on March 8th, mark your calendars, March 8th, the NOFA will be released along with application materials. And then you can see subsequently May 1st for pre-proposal submission deadlines. Again, if y'all are interested, we have application TA to help support with this process. Final applications on August 1st, and then awardees will be selected by the council late this year. So those are the dates we have. And then the last slide we have here is just for more information, we will be hosting workshops focused on the application process. Currently, we have a save the date set up for March 22nd and then the 23rd. They will be specific, audience specific. So on the 22nd, it's for all audiences, so it'd be general, and then tribal communities, and then rural and duck communities focused will be on the 23rd. We encourage folks to sign up to the TCC email if you have not done so already, because we will be sending out the dates as soon as those, and the links and everything as soon as those become available. We'll also, thank you, John, for dropping the links that we have here for other resources for folks in the chat. So with that, we'll close off for now and then take some questions towards the end.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jerry and Jess. That was a really great overview. Folks, please do add your questions to the chat. We're going to get to those after our next speaker. So I'm really pleased now to introduce Murtaza Sabusa, who is the County of San Diego's Program Manager for Regional Sustainability. He works for the county's new Office of Sustainability and Environmental Justice. And that office is leading the county's efforts in getting a zero carbon emission future through a regional decarbonization framework, and is collaborating with public and private and all sorts of other entities. He's got a doctoral degree in planning, and we're just very excited to have him here. And the reason we asked him here was to really make this a little bit more real for the communities that are going to be after these grants. We asked him to share what his experience was in applying and in being awarded, what kinds of considerations went into all of this. So he's going to share his experience, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions afterwards. So take it away. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Angie. As really honored to be here with the Strategic Growth Council, Murtaza Sabusa from the County of San Diego, with our new Office of Sustainability and Environmental Justice. And as Angie mentioned, it's a new office, and we're really fortunate to have this grant because when we received board direction to establish this office and a regional scope of sustainability and environmental justice and working with communities as the focus of our work, we didn't really have much of, if you will, resources or background in working with this. So having this support from SGC allowed us to provide a template for how we work with communities, as well as the technical assistance support. So I'll highlight those two in this presentation primarily. So next, so Spring Valley is one of the, this is a roadmap we created for our office to allow us to work with this. Most of the funding that we requested from this TCC application planning grant application is intended to support what we heard from the communities and community group CBOs is capacity building. So most of the funding will go to the CBOs from this grant application. So next, Spring Valley, which is one of the most urbanized areas of the unincorporated San Diego County. This is just a picture, and I was walking by, there's no sidewalk there or parking. The only way you know there's a park is that sign there. The topography is hilly with narrow winding roads and without sidewalks of sufficient right-of-way for non-vehicular travel. Next, if you look at just down the hill, you see some benches there. That's how you know there's park. Maybe there's some playground equipment. The area is racially and ethnically diverse more than the rest of the county, but it's also got a disproportionate burden of pollution and associated health risks. Next. There's also heavy industrial uses located next to single-family homes and close proximities. And this picture shows a lot of vacant lots. And there's concrete sidewalks here, but there were other places where it's asphalt sidewalks. So during the day, it becomes so hot that kids cannot go to school. Next, there's two major high interstates and multiple this one is Kumba Boulevard, heavily traveled thoroughways, high traffic volumes and speeds that create unsafe conditions. Next. So we looked at Spring Valley as one of the, which it's already defined in our general plan as one of the 4 EJ communities. There are 2 interesting components about this particular grant from our application that really helped us. And one was that as in the unincorporated county, this allows self-identification of disadvantaged communities. So we were able to work with the TA provider and SGC to define how we define these particular census tracts. And the second component associated with that is that I think this is the first time that SGC had technical assistance providers for planning, TCC planning grants. So the 2 kind of worked really well for us. Next, this slide shows that we had our own tools as well. As we were doing our outreach with communities, tree canopy cover was identified as a significant issue in this area, but also it is also associated with lack of pedestrian facilities, healthcare, youth services, food issues, and a lot of similar issues that happen in EJ communities. But this kind of a mapping tool, we call it a story map. This shows just one element of it. There were about 7 or 8 that you can scroll through and go into your zip code. In that, we have an online version of this. Next. So in terms of our objectives for this. We wanted to see if there was a cohesive approach to this self-defined EJ community. And the binding underlying our approach was, how do we reduce, as Angie mentioned, we're working on decarbonization at a regional level. How do we make it applicable at a community level? The second is public health and environmental benefits. We, as a county, we also provide public health services. And we also, in terms of our regional approach, are looking at ways to address climate and environmental air pollution, working with our partners at the Air Pollution Control District and other regional agencies. So that was a second, is to kind of weave in that collaboration. And the third was how do we, there's economic self-sufficiency underlying all three. Next, these are the grant partners. We met with a lot of CBOs for potential projects that include community outreach and engagement, community-based kitchen, farm-to-table, bike safety assessments, study of feasibility of health facilities, and coordination with local businesses and other programs. Want to emphasize that this is a planning grant, so this is really early in the process. We haven't yet gone to the place where we are certain about what actually gets built. So I think there's kind of an approach which was comprehensive, addressed housing, transportation, community, food, allowed for a variety of stakeholders to participate. Next. These are some of the photos from this transformational element. In terms of, I think Jerry mentioned the transformational elements that are required. In terms of community engagement, I want to emphasize that we were really aided by the active involvement of our board of supervisors. We had 2 districts overlapping here, and they were in every single meeting we had with the community. The second transformative element was the displacement avoidance, and we're trying to see if there is a way to see a community land trust, a way that can address some of the displacement and affordable housing issues. There's a concentration of homeless population there that is not counted in the census survey, so that was one of the limitations of the data. The third thing was leverage funding. As I mentioned, county is trying to collaborate and leverage the decarbonization resources, so that along with the EJ, so it's sustainability and EJ. And then climate adaptation and resiliency, things like bike audits and workforce development. How do we integrate food systems into a sustainable circular economy? So those were the transformative. That concludes my presentation, and happy to answer any questions. And that's the website for our office. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I don't know about you all, but this was a great idea actually by Kelsey on our team, to bring somebody from a community who's actually been awarded these grants we keep telling you about, to make it a little bit more real. We aren't getting a whole lot of questions, I'm surprised to say, in the chat, maybe because these presentations were so comprehensive. But I am going to bring up that Garrett Wong over at the County of San Diego asked, are implementation grants eligible only to TCC planning grant recipients, or can others apply who have done collaborative planning project and identification through other means? And so, Jerry, do you want to just address that one here live? I think you addressed it in the chat also, but I think it'd be helpful for everybody to hear.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Garrett, for asking that. Yeah, you don't have to be an implementation grantee. I think we tinkered with the presentation and drew that arrow, and I think that might have been confusing in the table. But no, you do not have to be. You can be. It's open to all applicants. I will say though, however, there's a little bit of a caveat there, that all the implementation grant awardees from round 3 and 4 now have all been planning grantees at some point. So it's, I mean, we're seeing this could this be a trend? Starting to look like a trend, but it's open to all. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you. All right, Jerry, that was great. Next question we just got was, can the Strategic Growth Council folks go over the 6 transformative elements one more time? Thank you. So maybe Kelsey, could you put that back up on the screen?
Sure.
Jerry, Jerry and Jess, why don't you guys take that one?
Yeah, I can start. So we have the transformative elements or projects that we have include community engagement. So these transformative projects are more social in nature, and the way I like to think about it is they support a lot of the infrastructure, the hard projects, right? So these are peppered throughout, and these are meant to be the transformative elements are meant to be embedded throughout the entirety of the projects. So the first one is community engagement. So really, they're from the planning process, as you heard, with the County of San Diego, throughout the entirety of the grant lifetime, there will be community engagement. The other transformative element is workforce development. So have a connection for residents, for training and educational programs for residents and stakeholders of the project areas. There's also a displacement avoidance transformative element, which is set there to entice cities, agencies to build displacement avoidance policies within their city policies. We also have others that aren't on this slide, which are leverage funding. So really the idea that the TCC is kind of the catalyst for other investment opportunities. So part of the work too is to include leverage funding in the application process. So there will be funds pulled in from other spaces by the applicant. And then there's the fifth one is data and indicator tracking. So for implementation grants only, this is into the weeds. There's a third-party evaluator that's tying and will report annually on GHG emissions reductions, jobs created out of TCC. So that goes towards that piece. So yeah, those are into the weeds. But I see that Jess put in the guidelines in the chat. So there's definitely a lot more information in there on those. But the 3 main ones are these on this slide, if it's still up, which are that community engagement, workforce, and displacement avoidance. Those are the big ones that we've seen, as folks apply that require really that heavier lift, right? Because it does involve a lot of input from folks early on.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Totally helpful. And we are actually getting a couple questions now for Murtaza. So we're going to go over to you. Marty's asking, can you elaborate on the community land trust and how it is envisioned and its benefits?
So thank you. So Marty, this is because of the planning grant, we haven't yet had that experience and we're in the ground stage. This is intended to fund the feasibility study and coalition building. So a lot of the community partners and particularly the community groups there were interested in coalescing around a solution. The community land trust, the way we are thinking right now is we would do the study, and if necessary, the county could be that convener. It could even, if necessary, could be used with a county, initially county ownership, but the long-term goal is to transfer it over to a community-based ownership structure. But so I hope that answers like the vision for it. Well, we haven't yet worked out the pieces.
All right, thank you. And another question for you is, it's asking about the San Diego grant. Were they awarded as first-time applicants, or was a city within the county a previous awardee?
That's correct. The city was a previous awardee for Barrio Logan in the incorporated city. This is the first time I think we were even eligible to apply. I see Jerry nodding there.
Yeah, that's right, Murtaza. So for the round 4 guidelines, which were the last iteration a year ago, TCC expanded to unincorporated communities and tribal communities. So now expanding the reach of eligibility for communities. And yep, this is the first time that the county applied and we're awarded. Congrats. It's still exciting. Still exciting. So I want to say congratulations every time I see you all.
It's so exciting. I have a couple of questions. Just, in the county of San Diego, how does this help you meet your energy and climate goals? This is a really big infusion of investment. Tie it back to us, for us, as a local government trying to meet those energy and climate goals. What is it? How is this gonna get you there?
So yes, so thank you. We do have a bigger picture here, and I want to kind of and I don't want to distract too much, but there are probably folks that want to think of regional applications. This is one community, and if we can build up a lot of these communities with similar models across the region, oftentimes the criteria that come from the state do not fit into the box per se. But once we start having a larger discussion about EJ issues across the region, then we can congregate that with, for example, social equity guidance that we can include in climate action plans for all jurisdictions in the region. So that's kind of the goal, is to have these voices at the table inform development of regional climate action and adaptation strategies.
Yeah, and I want to encourage anybody. We have a couple more minutes here to raise your hands. I could ask questions all day. In fact, I want to get into some of the nitty-gritties about the actual application itself and just that experience for you. It sounds like you took advantage of the technical assistance, right? Yeah, and so this is an opportunity, I think, for you. Maybe share a little bit more about what did you get out of that? Well, how did that help you apply? Because this is a complicated application. Even just, I have seen, just determining an eligible area can be kind of, tough just in the very beginning, making sure that you have an eligible project. So can you share with us what did the technical assistance do for you? And maybe Jerry and Jess could follow up with just a little bit more detail on what is offered through TA.
Okay. Angie, do you want me to go first or Jerry to go first?
Yeah, let's hear from you first. That would be great.
So right. Okay. So even before we knew whether we would apply for this grant, we could fill out an application to kind of express our interest. There was an interview in which, at that time, and I don't remember the firms that were there in that interview. It was a screening process. We didn't really have our partners in place. So nonetheless, we expressed the seriousness of this and the board intent of us going to apply. As a result of that, we received the, and I apologize, I don't remember the firm that we got, but once we got the firm from SGC, they were consistently setting up, I think, weekly check-ins, and it was really helpful because it structures not just the counties, because the county is used to having a pipeline of grants, but it's the collaboration component of having the community-based organizations with pretty loose framework. In some cases where we got to they don't even have a bank account. So to do all this setup work was very critical. And then one additional kind of a wrinkle here is that because we are a public agency, I think we were required to have a board resolution. So everything had to be teed up for board approval. So that was also critical. It's critical time path as well.
Thank you. Jerry and Jess, you want to add anything on that? Just encouraging folks to take advantage.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of feedback we get all the time is just how helpful the technical assistance team is. So in addition to the one-on-one help, they also put on workshops throughout throughout the year. And we just actually had some in January and February. And yeah, they can really help you. It's especially great for, just for folks that don't have a lot of capacity on their team. Again, I'm thinking of, tribal communities as well as rural and disadvantaged unincorporated areas. And so again, we're just trying to fill that gap and yeah, bridge that gap so that this is an equitable process. And I am going to drop a link in the chat for the technical assistance page, as well as even an intake survey that you can fill out, things that they can even help you with, since I'm not sure how many of y'all have heard of TCC, but things that they can even help you with is determining if your project area is eligible or that your project is feasible, both financially as well as, just that social infrastructure that's needed. So there's just a lot of different things that they can help you with. And again, we try to partner with really trusted nonprofits and technical assistance providers. And then I'll pass it to Jerry, see if you have anything that you want to add.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, thanks, Jess. That's great. That's a great summary. The last thing I'll say is we understand the complexity of the application of TCC. So the technical assistance is there to help folks out. Again, it's available to all folks that are interested in implementation grants by default. It's actually required if you're applying for an implementation grant. And then again, as we expand it to rural and tribal communities, application TA is available to this expansion of into ducks and tribal communities for planning, the project development grants that are new, and implementation grants. So again, trying to level the playing field here for folks.
It's so great. Just, it's nice to see that Strategic Growth Council is really one of the best out there at really trying to do this all around wraparound support, understanding how difficult these processes can be for communities, and so providing upfront support. So please take advantage of it. I hope you're hearing that you don't have to have all your ducks in a row yet. It could be really helpful to test the waters a little bit with Strategic Growth Council through the TA process. There's one last question I want to tackle here, and that's from Nick in Albany. Can a small city get technical assistance prior to applying? So I think that's just a clarifying question. Sounds like yes.
Yeah, I can answer that, Nick. Yeah, that intake survey, just dropped the link to that. If you fill out that intake survey, that's like the first, there's a call, there's a you don't have to apply for anything. So that's where you get a little bit of a walkthrough. It's kind of a a check to see where you are, and then the application TA provider will say, yeah, keep going, keep moving further towards application. So they do the right, they set you up, and then they go through the application process as well. So there's a little bit of that, if that answers your question, Nick.
All right. Well, thank you all for your questions. And thank you, Jerry and Jess and Murtaza, for taking time to share that with us. I hope it's inspired some folks to start thinking about these applications. Don't forget those applications. We're going to start seeing the actual applications on March 8th. So we've given you a little bit of a heads up, so you have a little extra time to be starting to put the pieces together here. And I don't know if you're noticing a trend here in all the opportunities we've talked about today, where, gosh, there's a lot of ways that big dollar grants are encouraging some really great collaborations between local governments and partner organizations and CDOs. So I know that that's on a priority list for so many of you to do that better and to have the resources to do it. So I hope you're seeing that the federal government and the state really are trying to advance those priorities as well. Okay, well, thanks again for that. We're going to do one last thing before we release you all for the day. So we always have this little workshop here at the end. And so one thing I wanted to share with you, I mentioned before that we have been chatting a little bit with the California Energy Commission. Super excited to see that California is going to receive a substantial allocation of the home energy rebate program from the DOE. And what we're doing right now is trying to compile insights, recommendations, examples, and other thoughts from all of you who have all of the expertise running these home energy programs on the ground. Well, not every, this may not be in your wheelhouse. If it is, and it is for a lot of you, we'd be interested in hearing your thoughts. And really the goal of this is to compile these in a way that's actually going to assist the state as they start designing a proposal for these funds in a way that really works and can kind of elevate and use all the existing experience, knowledge, programmatic infrastructure from around the state local governments, regional agencies have been doing this work with home energy programming for decades. So we want to build upon that knowledge and kind of get, for those of you around during ARA, this is almost like we get to try again to implement some rebate programs around the state in ways that can really push along the home energy industry. So we have a link here in the chat. That's to a shared document. That's just an opportunity for you to add some thoughts here. And I'm just asking for folks to do that if you can, spend a little time now writing a few thoughts if you can. And otherwise, by the end of the week, I'm just trying to compile thoughts that I can. If you have questions and you want to just talk to me directly, you can just contact me. I'd be happy if if it's easier for you to just talk to me about some of these things and I can find the right place for it. That would be great. And so, you'll see in this document, there's some categories here. We're just asking you to share if you have anything to add on the local and regional history in home energy programming or local lessons and best practices under program design, rebate and financing administration, homeowner engagement, and contractor engagement. And then any recommendations you'd like to see us pass along to the state. So this is part of our effort to really just be a good partner with the state and encourage more collaboration and a growing relationship between local, regional, and state organizations. All right, I see folks starting to put some stuff in here. So thank you. You have to the end of the week to do that. We also want to just remind you that our forum is coming, right? So our forum is going to happen in June in Santa Rosa. So that's the CCEC forum. We're already doing our session proposals. So we're asking for folks to submit a session proposal. And so John just posted the link here in the chat again. So I think, what's the deadline again, John? Is it the 23rd of this month?
23rd is the current deadline. Yeah. So next Thursday.
So this is an opportunity. It's an in-person event. It's an opportunity for us to get together. We would love to hear all of those best practices. What are you doing out there in the energy and climate space that's working, and what lessons are you learning, and how can you share that with others like you? And we all get together soon and learn from each other. Last thing is just a reminder that we have this new needs and have board. So feel free, and maybe we can drop that link in again. Just make sure you add something there to it. If you have something to offer, if you have a need. And so we'll see how this goes. We're going to kind of keep it running. And if you think of a way to improve upon it, we are ears. We know it's hard sometimes to connect formally. So this is an informal way to connect. Okay, so that's the workshop for today. I really appreciate anybody who's providing some thoughts in those two documents that we've shared. And that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I always appreciate our guests, and I always appreciate all the good participation and engagement we get during these calls. We'll see you again next month, March 14th. We're actually going to have a conversation about constituent-facing programs and navigating tools that can help you point your constituents in the right direction on programs. Sorry, next slide. And that's it. If you want to share this invitation with others you think would benefit from it, we would love to see this network grow. And with that, we hope you have a great Valentine's Day, and we'll see you next month.